Good evening, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome once again to our usual Monday program. This time taking place at 8 p.m. because of the time change that we have around the world. It's always a pleasure to be again with you. And today, we'll be having a very interesting topic. We pray all of you who have always been with us to join us and watch us live from Facebook as well as on YouTube, and equally invite your friends to be with us. I remain your humble host, Mbolifor Elvis Ambi. This evening, our topic is an integrated continent free from all kinds of oppression, including gender based violence. And the $1 million question we're asking ourselves is, are African leaders tackling this issue with the sensitivity it deserves? Are African leaders tackling this issue with the sensitivity it deserves? This evening, ladies and gentlemen, we'll be having a powerful lady, Petula Eziga Kecha, who is the founder of Lip Girl Africa. And this group responds and prevents sexual violence as well as promote girls' education and sexual reproductive health. Before I introduce Petula into studio, I wish to define what we actually mean by gender-based violence, and it is defined as uh, an act of gender-based violence that results in or likely to result in physical, sexual, or mental harm or suffering to women, including threats of such acts or arbitrary deprivation of liberty without whether occurring in public or in private. And I wanted to point something out here, that we are defining gender-based violence and we are only basing on women. Remember equally that men equally go through gender violence. Thank you so much. We have equally Antonia Ndumba, who is joining us in studio, and she will be our panelist equally for this evening. Thank you so much, Petula. I keep calling you Petula, and Antonia for being there with us. I will continue by taking Petula, who is going to tell us a bit about herself and her organization. And then secondly, we'll take Antonia. Then we get to the questions proper for our debate. You're welcome, Petula Eziga Kecha, to the Sompon platform. This is your platform. This is your space. Can we know who you are, what you do, Petula?
Thank you so much for inviting me today. It's always a pleasure to be part of the panel for such an important discussion that is ravaging the African continent and the world. My name is Kesha Petula Isra. I am the founder and coordinator of Live Girl Africa. We promote girls' education, prevent and respond to sexual and gender-based violence by providing proper referrals to victims and survivors of abuse. And we equally promote girls' sexual reproductive health rights for them to have autonomy over themselves. My introduction, I plead to end here because today we are focusing on gender-based violence, but my work is not limited in Cameroon only. I work across Africa and the world through the Commonwealth Youth Gender and Equality Network, where I am leading the sexual reproductive health right thematic for the year 2020, 2019-2020. So thank you again for having me here.
Thank you so much. You're a square peg in a square hole, and we are sure that you're going to be a resource person this evening for this topic that touches you directly. Antonia, you've been on the panel, and it's been quite a while that we have not had you on the panel. Where have you been, and what has been keeping you busy? Can we get a word from you, Antonia, after a long while on the panel?
Good evening. Thank you for having me. I have been on the panel before, but I am studying. So, like when I'm not studying, I'm resting or I'm busy doing activist work on ground. So it's really hard to get me on here because I'm a busy woman. But yeah, I am currently studying social entrepreneurship in the US, but I'm back home in Namibia, where gender-based violence has become it has become such a great issue that we want the president to announce it as a state of emergency because our girls are dying every day, women are dying every day, men are being raped every day. And we think that is a conversation we need to have because African leaders here in Namibia and throughout our continent are not treating this with a sense of urgency that it needs to be treated with.
Thank you so much. Gender-based violence is something we must talk about, and that is what we are actually doing. And thank you so much for coming back to this panel. Like we said, this is your space. Always join us when you can. We're happy that you're back. And this will take us to our very first question. When you say that this must be taken into consideration, and we are asking ourselves today whether African leaders are really tackling this issue with the sensitivity it deserves. And we're asking ourselves, we have not been having all these cries about gender violence, but of recent, it has become a talk of the day. On social media, on newspapers, everywhere we hear gender violence. How can you explain this widespread of gender violence today? I take Petula.
Thank you very much for that question. I've been hearing that a lot recently, but gender-based violence has always been a silent pandemic that is recently people got the courage to be speaking out against violence. At first, it was just embedded in our social norms and cultural norms, where it's just normal to be the woman and marital rape is not even recognized as a form of abuse. So because people have been raising awareness on that, women have been rising up and speaking up against abuse. Reason why it is becoming alarm is becoming alarming, and everyone is standing up. What should we do? What needs to be done? It's not as if it's just recently that the pandemic rose up. I want to call it a pandemic because it is, but it has not been treated as one. So as we are using our stories, victims and survivors of abuse are using their stories to raise awareness on this issue, is becoming a global issue. It's becoming an issue that is recognized. Just removing ourselves from the patriarchal society that we are living in and denying it. Feminist movements that are rising up and saying, okay, this is a form of abuse when it was not recognized at first. We are seeing this in our laws, some of our laws that do not recognize abuse. So the widespread is understandable. Women are tired of staying silent on abuse.
So you say that the gender-based violence is a silent pandemic. I was thinking that you would say an epidemic, but when you say pandemic, I understand because you say it is widespread. And the problem is that the victims are always hesitant to reveal their experiences due to many barriers. Can you cite us some barriers, or what are the reasons that we are hearing this just today? Why have women been so quiet? I say women because it's like it's so tilted to women. But let me change the vocabulary. Why are the victims? Let me use victims here. Why are the victims always hesitant to express to reveal their experiences? Are they threatened, or is it traumatizing, or what is really that thing that makes them just stay quiet and die in their pain?
Victim blaming is still an issue, especially in Cameroon. Coming out and saying that I have been raped or I am being beaten, they just look at you as if you're coming down from heaven. And sometimes when you even report this to your parents in a case of marital rape, it's not seen as an issue. So because this is not even recognized as an issue or a problem, victims don't feel that, okay, if I go out and say this is happening to me, it will not be seen as a problem. So why should I go ahead? Or if I go, they are going to tell me you have to endure. And because I keep enduring, I feel the pain alone. I cannot share because that society is not ready to listen to me. Is not ready to even believe in me. They are not ready. The system is not ready to take charge of you. From you reporting, even the police is not ready to take care of you. So it just, victim blaming is still a big issue, and that is what we are facing. That is the number one reason why gender-based violence is underreported.
Okay. Okay. You say that gender-based violence wasn't so recognized and that society is not ready to listen or to take charge of those who are victims of gender-based violence. Antonia,
Yeah, and
what are the
it's even worse for men. It's even worse for men because the man is known to be the strong person. The man is known not to cry in public. So we received a case of a man who reported abuse, and he went to the police station. Instead of helping him, they were like, you deserve to be beaten. How can you come ahead and say a woman reported you? It's not even allowed. You are disgracing manhood. So these are some of the issues, the gender stereotypes and the gender roles that have been placed. A woman is meant to, okay, keep receiving the violence, while the man is just placed up there to show his masculinity, to show his power. So when he's on the other side, it should not be accepted.
You got me laughing there when you said that the man reported a gender violence case, and instead of being helped or assisted, the mob was like, "How dare you come to report such a thing?" And that will take us to one of the reasons that some people shy away from talking about gender-based violence, because the society sometimes will look at you like, "Look at this one. How can you come to report such a thing?" But somebody is actually in a situation where he needs help. Thank you so much for that submission. Antonia, we have talked of the society not being ready to listen or take charge of those who are victims of gender-based violence. And that gender-based violence, when we talk of the marital setting, some people look at it as anything done is normal. And that is even in our African society, because out of Africa, just shouting at a woman is tantamount to divorce. That is enough for divorce. But in Africa, women are taught to be, or they have to, succumb to some situation on,
Obedient.
some ill treatment, because the men think that they have bought them over. And that is one of the reasons why our women and some of our men, I must say, suffer from this gender-based violence. But then, Antonia, what are the challenges that the government, some NGOs, women and equally youth
Yes.
associations like what Petula is doing face to be able to sensitize the public that this gender-based violence actually do exist and that it should be handled with much care? What do you think are some of these challenges?
Okay. Thank you for the question. I think I'm gonna piggyback a lot off of what Petula said. The two most important things are that some of these things are not seen as crimes, you know? Society thinks it's normal. If there's a man threatening to rape me, I can't go report that because he just said that he didn't do it. I can only report when after he's done it. And then there'll be a question about why didn't you stay away from him? Then I'm being victim shamed. I'm being blamed. When you went to the police, why didn't you? And there's a lack of accountability for perpetrators. And victims are always the ones that have to answer. And I think that's the biggest issue. And I think that's why, like, the government, the NGOs, the society, they don't want to
Okay, you say that there is the
Or
aspect.
what?
We lost Antonia there, I'm sure. She was talking about the challenges that are faced by the government, NGOs, women, and some youth associations to be able to sensitize the public on this issue of gender based violence. And she is pointing out the fact that victim shamed or shame is still a very serious issue, that instead of the victim being considered as actually in a problem, they are instead posing the question, why didn't you put measures to be able to avoid
Protect
this issue
yourself.
from happening?
Mm.
Yes, Antonia is back.
Yeah, I'm saying it would be just like you said, why didn't you put measures in to avoid this from happening? But, and that's what we hear the most, but you'll never hear, if you threaten to rape a woman, you'll be in jail. If you, like, verbal abuse is abuse and it's not recognized. Sending me text messages, threatening me, that is abuse, but it's not recognized. So NGOs like the one Petula has are facing that if there's a woman coming to them saying that my husband is abusing me, they, the law doesn't have anything to hold him accountable. If there's a man being abused by his wife, the law, customs, traditions, none of that have anything to keep perpetrators, to hold perpetrators accountable, and that's the problem.
Okay, thank you. Your main point is that there is still the victim shame aspect, which is so rampant. And when I was going through this
Yeah,
aspect of gender-based violence, I noticed that this could be classified in two ways, and we are looking at the relationship between the perpetrator, I beg your pardon, and victim, which can be intimate partner violence or non-intimate partner violence. And then we had another type, the type of the act, be it sexual, physical, or emotional. And of late, we have been hearing so much of rape, rape, rape all over the place. And this has even tripled, why not so rampant in our African society, that we are asking ourselves what is actually happening. How do you think, Petula, that our African government can put in place? What system can our African government put in place to dissuade the reoccurrence of this issue of rape? And equally, how can they accompany the victims who have been raped?
All right. Thank you very much for that question. Such an important question. First, I would say the laws and policies that we have. Yeah, the laws are there. Some laws are there. Some laws are not there. But actually, it comes in place at the level of the justice system. The justice system is slow, is costly, and victims, especially those who are poor, cannot go through that. And it is hard for you to come every time to come and battle with your rapists, looking at them. And sometimes you're even forced to stay with them in the same house. So, how do you get through the long process, which can even take a year or two, and recover, and they expect you to recover at the same time? So it's not only at the level of the laws, it's at the level of making sure that the laws are being implemented as quick as possible. Response to gender-based violence should be quick and timely, because the slow nature keeps dragging it, and sometimes most victims don't even make it to the end. They either give up because of the threat that they receive from the perpetrators, uh, or you can simply just pay your bail out, or they can say, okay, let's settle this between families, and it ends there. So even apart from the laws, I will also say aligning cultural norms to national laws. Some of our national laws are very good, but we still have those archaic customary laws which are ruling us. And when you go to some communities, like what we have done, they don't even listen. They can listen to the chief, but do not listen to you. Muslim people can listen to their lamido more than they listen to the government or they listen to whoever. So if those traditional leaders can align their laws to national laws, it will really be great. For example, laws on early and child marriages and even female genital mutilation that you see in communities is accepted, but the laws to ban them. Traditional rulers should work hand in hand with the government for us to be able to pull through. And next, I would say the response system. Yes, I already mentioned about justice, but justice is not the only response system available or wish to be available for survivors of abuse. There is the healthcare, there is the psychosocial support, and before the legal support. But then we skip all these parts. If when victims or survivors are forced to stay with their abusers for the court system to go through, it means the state does not have centers to keep them safe. So we should be able to have safe houses. In Cameroon, I can count the safe houses that we have. We did a survey for the 10 regions of Cameroon to facilitate referrals. In case there is a case of abuse in the north, we can easily refer the person that, okay, you can quickly go here. But the numbers were so few, and even the cases or the centers that we identified, they do not have the equipments to lodge the survivors of abuse. So these are the three aspects that government should really work on to ensure that they are well-equipped response services for victims and survivors of abuse, and that the laws are being implemented and reduce some of the systems, especially for victims of rape or marital abuse. Thank you.
Before you go, what do you think is the root cause of this increased rate of rape and gender violence nowadays? What is the motivation or the motivational force behind this that of late we really are submerged with reports of rape, violence, and what have you?
For the root cause of abuse is really hard to pinpoint your hand on something, because it's not, if you cannot give a reason for someone who is abusing someone or for violence. It's a choice that someone's make to put their power, because they have the power, they just want to use their power on an authority on someone else. So this stems down to patriarchy. As said earlier, women have been placed in positions, especially girls, have been placed in positions to keep on being respectful. And when you do the least to step out of that, it becomes as if you are not from the ordinary. You are not working according to norms. And sometimes when you're not working according to norms, our parents used to use that. They will beat us up. So some people still feel entitled that they can go ahead and correct you in quotes by using force.
So our traditional way of correction by our parents has actually resulted to be one of the root causes of gender-based violence, which I agree with you is your opinion and it counts. I was thinking that because social media modernity has really changed our society a great deal, and things have really taken another turn that we do not even understand what is happening. And today we are talking about gender based violence. I want to take this opportunity now to greet all those who are watching us on Facebook and live on YouTube. We are on every Monday, 8 p.m. for now. When the time changes, we are going to signal you. And we equally have other programs on the Sompon Global TV. This evening, with me in the studio, I have Petula Eziga Kecha and Antonia Dumba, and we are talking about gender-based violence and how the African leaders are tackling this issue. I want to say that it's a topic that we must talk about. It's a sensitive topic, and that is what we are actually doing now because this has been ravaging our society, and we must already raise an alarm that it is getting too much and that we have to look for means to stop this because those who are victims of this gender based violence are suffering and they are suffering in silence. So we want to raise our voice and equally encourage them to come out because there are groups, of course, that will rehabilitate them, follow them up, and equally motivate and encourage them through their struggle of being abused, either physically, emotionally, or sexually. Antonia, you're back. We're talking about rape, and I'm sure that in your community, you must be having some issues of rape. What do you think are
Yeah,
the root causes of the increased prevalence of rape cases in your community these days?
I am so happy that you asked that question. I think there isn't a root cause of an increase. I think more light is being shed on the issue, and that we're seeing that this is a problem, that women are seeing that what's victims are seeing that what is happening to them is wrong and it shouldn't be happening. And in the same time, perpetrators are seeing that leaders are not doing anything about it. So it's being normalized, and that is what's happening. There's no root cause as to why more cases are being reported, as to why it's happening more often. These things have been happening for years, for decades. It just, victims didn't know that it was wrong, and governments didn't care at all. Now they care a little, but not as much as they should. You see? Like I said, at the same time, people that are doing these acts are seeing that it's okay. And there's a much louder outcry, you know? The same alarm has been ringing for years. Victims need help. Girls are being raped, women are being raped. Gender-based violence is an issue. The same phone call we've been making to leaders, to law officials, however, they've been putting the call on hold. And now we've come to a time where we can't. We need to speak up about it. So I genuinely think it's not even a thing about there are more rape cases or there's a root cause. There isn't, like, no one is raised to be a rapist. So we can't say the root cause is because this happened
Antonia,
or this is
your
happening
line
in this country.
is Antonia, your line is
Is it okay
broken.
now?
We can Yes, it's okay now. It's so broken that we can't get you properly. Can you get closer to
Oh,
your
okay. So
good? We
yeah.
Okay, go on
So
now.
yeah. So basically, just saying that there isn't a root cause because no one is raised to be a rapist or abusive person. It really comes from a place
Okay,
of,
Antonia, I will come back to you. I will come back to you. I wanted
okay.
to look at a comment that we have here by Mary De Caro. She says it's difficult for us to face the law because when you first report to police, they just take you for granted. Then our law put victims into shame, telling her or him to explain why they didn't fight. And I think that Petula had already brought this up when she said sometimes you are reasoning how the comments that you are going to receive, and they are going to ask you, what did you do in order to avoid this from happening? And it becomes difficult. But we are saying that no matter, we should not cope with difficult conditions like gender-based violence. We should speak out. And I was saying that it is mostly on women, but let's not forget equally that men suffer from gender-based violence. And before I could even say that, Petula was giving me an example where a man was, humiliated, let me put it that way, why he couldn't, or he should be the one that is violated and not the woman. But we are saying here loud that nobody is supposed to be, violated, because nobody deserves to be violated. All of us have to be happy and feel comfortable in ourselves, whether physical, emotional, or hate speech, like one of our viewers was talking about, that we just base sometimes just on physical violence, forgetting that there is equally emotional violence as well as hate speech, which goes a long way to be so detrimental to the health of somebody. And like we were saying, what are those measures that are put in place to get this going? But measures will only work if those who are victims of this gender-based violence speak up, because we are not magicians to know that this or that person is violated, except they speak out. I remember sometimes you see a lady with a bandaged face, and when you ask what happened, she says she hit the face on the door, or she fell when she was coming back from the meeting, whereas she has been violated thoroughly, but she can't speak out even when she's asked what actually happened. And so we're encouraging our ladies, our men who are being violated out there to speak out, because it's only in speaking out that solutions will be sorted to their problems. Thank you, everyone who's watching us live on YouTube as well as on Facebook. We have Nancy Ray, who says it is encouraging to know that some associations are working hard to follow up this issue of gender-based violence. But is the government helping you? How do you get the victims who talk to face eyes of others after? Like we're saying already, there is this shame aspect. Victims are blamed, but we do not think that they should hide in their corners, but come out and explain. There will always be somebody to listen to you, and there are specialized people. We have Petula here, national but equally international, and she equally works for the promotion of girl education and sexual reproductive health. So when you are raped, for example, there is already a problem to your sexual life, because either you become just buried in your shells, or the trauma takes you throughout life. And that is why you see some ladies will hate men with passion, not because all men did something bad to her, but because one man had, violated her either physically or sexually. And Petula, I beg your pardon, will surely still be enlightening us as we are going on with our program. Petula, uh, tell us about violence suffered equally by men in our society. You're not a man, but I am sure that you must have heard some men complain. What are some of those violence, gender-based violence, that men suffer? Is awareness equally on this really raised concerning men facing gender violence?
Yeah, men face a lot of violence too, uh, verbally, physically, and sometimes I don't know about sexually, but we haven't received such a case yet. But mostly is verbally the stress that some women give to men. And recently, I was reading a report from Kenya how it has increased the suicide of men. It has been leading men to commit suicide, the increasing rate of suicide. And this is simply because men are not known for those who speak up, for those who cry in public. They are just known as the shockers of pain. When you want to show your pain, they can just tap you, be a man, and you are just supposed to be a man automatically, and the pain should go away. And yes, we are equally raising awareness on violence against men. Last year, we had a men's conference where we said, okay, we are tired of women standing up there and talking about violence, talking about their own stories, and talking about their own issues that they are facing daily. Why don't we allow men to come up and share their experiences, what is going on in their relationships that they are never telling us, that we are not aware of. Where do they actually shed the tears when we put out some hurtful words to them? Where do they show the pain? Because for us, if a man just puts out one word there, we'll just wrap ourselves on a pillow and we start crying. But for men, we never see that. So let them come and share in that conference where they hide all the emotions in. And it was interesting because we had 11 male-led organizations that were part of the conference. And the interesting stories that we got really pushed us to do this yearly. It's because of Corona that we want to reduce the number this year. And men actually face a lot of abuse, which is silent mostly. We came up with this short policy paper when we finished the conference that we called the Bros Code. The Bros Code, because we know the commonly known Bro Code, that okay, if you sleep with this girl, don't come you can share it to this other person. But then this Bro Code was not about that. And in this Bro Code, it was like, okay, bro, you can cry also. Bro, when she does this and it's not good to you, you can tell her that, okay, this actually hurt me. You are not a stone. You are normal. You are a normal person. It's good to express yourself because mental health is real in Africa. Men are not immune to stress. And the earlier we start accepting that, the better for us all.
Thank you. I was talking with somebody and he said that men die early because they go through much stress. And like you said, they will always tap you and say, bro, be a man. And you keep dying and wallowing in stress that finally may take your life. So we are saying that men go through so much torture, so much trauma, so much abuse. Like we said, abuse is not just physical. If the women are not strong to abuse the men physically, they are strong to abuse the men verbally and equally with hate speech. And we are calling on all the men who are watching us and those who are going to watch us after this, that if you are abused, come out of your shell, share your experience, because your experience is going to help another person or prevent another person from being abused. Thank you so much, Petula, for being there with your experience from your group. You're actually a resource person for us this evening. We are talking about gender violence, and we are just looking at gender violence occurring in the homes, in the families. And we are forgetting equally that many people are abused even at their job sites. Do you think the how do they call it again? The human resource management of different institutions have really put on principles and rules to handle this type of abuse if it occurs at the job site?
Yes, they can. It's like whenever they are recruiting someone, there are policies that are put in place to guide you in the workplace. And when you evaluate this, you realize that few of the policies, the internal laws and regulations that they put in place, most times sexual harassment or sexual abuse is missing. This is really something that has to be outlined, because it's recently that sexual abuse in the workspace and even in schools started becoming alarming, and the recognition for laws and policies to be put in place. So yes, human resources can do that, but for workers that don't have those internal policies, is for them to ensure that before you join in a company, you need to know how safe am I, because everywhere that you are reaching at, you need to build a safe space. If your workplace is not a safe space and some laws and policies are not helping you to feel that you're in a safe space, then it is your right to demand for it. So far, I think there are few companies that are doing serious sanctions on cases of abuse and sexual harassment, but in schools it's still timid, and especially in private sectors it's still timid. But much work needs to be done, since you rightly said it's the role of the human resource. But why not? Workers can still put themselves together and say, no, okay, this is what we demand. We demand that these policies and laws should be adopted to protect us, and present it to their directors. That's one of the strategies that we have been sharing with some organizations and private companies. You draft, come together as colleagues, you draft what have you faced, what have you gone through this, you put them together, present it to your director. We need a reform at this level, because it's all about reformation. If they don't see the issue and you see the issue, then you need to stand up for it. Thank you.
Okay, we're looking at gender-based violence at the job sites, and you see that most of our companies, our associations here in Africa, don't have the laws that protects its employees or its workers against gender-based violence. And we are saying that this really does happen. But given the lack of jobs in Africa, given the number of youths who are out there searching for jobs, do you think it is a trick, or that this is avoided consciously, so that nobody will have to cry out if there is any gender violence? Is it a twist on the law that they have just shifted that out? Because in most companies we get that happening, and nobody is punished. The perpetrators are never punished, but instead, most of the times, the victim is sanctioned or dismissed even from work. Do you think that this omission is done consciously in our companies here in Africa?
I don't know if it's done consciously, but usually what they do is just state it out without clear sanctions on how it's going to be done, without clear sanctions on who exactly you need to report to. They are just like, okay, we do not support sexual harassment. Yes, you do not support sexual harassment, but what are the sanctions that you put in place for this? Because that is what we need right now. We don't just need states people to be stating the laws or stating the policies. It needs to come along with sanctions. And you're perfectly correct when you say victims usually who report cases of abuse, they are just like, okay, we cannot have such a reputation for our company, and they are just sent off sometimes to shut them up. And because you are on the vulnerable side, you keep pleading, and sometimes you will still get back into that cycle of accepting to just do it. Okay, I'm already in, I've been harassed enough, my job is at stake, let me just do this. And who will know? It usually just ends like that.
Okay, we have Emma Lambert who says boys face these difficulties more than girls, and that consequently, many of these boys tend to be rapists because they were once raped. I think somebody turning or wanting to become a rapist, to assault others, to violate others sexually, it's not, it's not vengeance. If you could revenge, then you should revenge on the person who assaulted you. But now, why inflict pain on others because you were once assaulted? I don't think this should be the best thing to do, because we do not caution that others be violated because we are suffering because we were violated. And like we were talking about the government treating this issue with which is so sensitive with much interest, equally and much concern. We were forgetting to say that this issue is a global something. You talked of a pandemic. It means that it doesn't just affect the family, but it spreads out, because even the way the person feels, he or she begins to treat others with that type of vengeance spirit. And we have one of our correspondents here saying that some people will decide to assault others because they were once assaulted. Yes, boys are going through much gender-based violence, especially when they are still very young and cannot defend themselves. And they usually are threatened not to talk. And when we talk of Africa, many ladies, many men will be assaulted and don't speak because they want to secure their jobs. But we see it's not the only job that you can find in Africa or on planet Earth. Do not permit yourself to be assaulted or to be violated sexually, physically, or emotionally because you want to keep your job. And we are having here that, yes, men are also targeted by domestic violence. Unfortunately, only a few will speak up about their victimization. They instead choose to stay silent because of fear, shame, and also stigmatization. We have brought this point up over and over, and we are hammering so hard that men should speak out, because gender violence is nothing that we should cope with. And I was saying that we are talking about gender violence at home. We have talked about gender violence at the workplace, but we are forgetting one that is even so rampant that we end up even losing contact or target on it. And this is gender violence in schools, or harassment in schools, assault in schools, where our children, our young boys that we're talking about them now, are assaulted, they are raped, but they will never speak out, because this is usually done by adults who threaten these children to keep quiet. And sometimes you only discover that the child is assaulted when the child has fallen ill, or the child has an infection, or the child becomes so depressed in the house that you are asking what is happening. But because the child was threatened, the child doesn't say anything. What do you think that we can say or do that would add the sensitivity of this very question, gender-based violence, to most of the stakeholders, if not all the stakeholders, and equally heads of institutions, that's educational institutions? How can we caution them to be able to identify this type of acts that are being perpetrated in their school premises? And equally, how can they handle, why not sanction those who perpetrate this type of acts, especially in school premises with very young children who are supposed to be protected? But unfortunately, the perpetrators scare them even from coming to school, because I know many will not want to come to school, and it's because they will not want to come to school sometimes that when you insist, why don't you want to go to school? And they'll tell you they don't want to go. This person beats me up. And you ask, how do they beat you up? And they begin to point places that have nothing to do with beating. How do you think we can add our voices to these institutions and those who have them to manage gender-based violence on our children? Petula.
Thank you very much for that question. The numbers has been increasing at a rate that sometimes you just lost count. First, I would say parent-student relationship. Some students are not even aware that this can be prosecuted, or this is actually an issue that I'm going through. I can open up to my father, or I can open up to my mother. And this is simply because the parent-student relationship, the parent-child relationship is not good. When you don't talk about sex education to your child, how are they supposed to be aware that this is what is happening? Of course, sometimes you rape people, they are not aware that they have been raped. And is normal because they are ignorant. They are not aware. You just feel that what is happening to me is not correct because I'm feeling the pain, I'm feeling that part of my dignity is gone. But then who do I go to? Parents, there is the house, and school for those who are in school. School is supposed to be a safe space. The home is supposed to be a safe space. When you're abused in the home, it's no longer safe, and sometimes it's the teachers that you report to. But then when you go to your second safe space and it's not safe, it becomes an issue. In schools, mostly that teachers harass students and even threaten them because of their marks. At some point, you just give up that, okay, this is my future we are talking about, because you're looking at a bigger picture. You're just like, if I give up now, it means I'm going to repeat this class. It becomes really hard to address this, but I would say we are still looking up to our government. We are still looking up to our parents. When parents attend PTA meetings, what are you talking about? Because the students don't even talk about it properly. You just get it from the air. You don't get the real stories. But if parents are able to talk to their children, we are going to get the real stories. And it's only when you get the real story that you'll be able to tackle. You cannot tackle something that you're just getting from the air. You have not gotten the full story. Yes, we have been hearing most of the rape stories, especially in primary school.
Okay, I'm sure Petula must be having some technical hitches there. She was talking about how we could join our voices to that of institutions and directors of institutions, how to manage this gender-based violence. And she raised already so many interesting points there, some of which she talked about a poor parent and child relationship, which ends up frustrating the child. The parent doesn't speak with the child, so the child is not open to the parent, and so cannot, tell the parent things that happen back at school. And one of the issues too that we parents fail sometimes is because we do not teach our children sex education. You'll be surprised that some children will go to the neighbors to get information. Maybe the girls, when they begin menstruating, they will have to go to the neighbors to ask them how they actually can manage the situation. And it becomes really frustrating that you have a child in the house and you cannot sit that child down and teach the child basic things that are supposed to be done. And this really exposes our children. And when they are faced with gender based violence, they have nowhere to go, they have no confidence, there is nobody they trust that they can talk to, because you don't discuss things like this with the child. So the child doesn't know even how to begin introducing a topic as such. And then they end up being, they hide in their shells, suffer the stress alone. And at the end of the day, you find our girl children pregnant and they don't even know who impregnated them. So parents, let us create a cordial relationship with our children. Let us teach our children sex education. When I say this, sometimes my children laugh, but it is important that we teach them. You find a child having a problem, maybe, let me not be vulgar here, and the child is showing you somewhere else and calling a different name. And this is because we do not teach the children. Tell the child, this is how this is called. This is how this part is called. So that when they are talking, they will tell you, mommy, daddy, this is what happened. And equally tell your children that people are not supposed to touch them anyhow. Nobody should see your child and start saying, this is my husband, this is my wife. And that is how they do, and end up cajoling the children, and they will be abused, and the children will not even know that they are being abused. Petula said that some people don't even know that they are being abused, and so they think that they should just support the pain. And why not? If they are looking at a bigger picture, then they think is correct. But Cornelia is telling us here that this is wrong and it's a criminal case, that we should not manage abuse. We should report abuse, and equally know that abuse is not the right thing that we have to manage. Petula is back with us. Your one last word. I was about asking you that when you hear of Agenda 2063, we're talking of a space that is free of all sorts of oppression. Are you confident that by 2063, gender-based violence would have been a thing of the past, and that we will have a society, an Africa that is full of beautiful dreams that we can write home about? What is your last word on this issue of gender-based violence? And if this 2063 is just a dream for us or is a reality for you?
It is a reality for me. I'm very hopeful and keeping my hopes up high, especially with the wave of women that are coming out and refusing to stay quiet on abuse. And even men who are beginning to recognize that, okay, there's no need for me to die in silence. So this is really hopeful, especially with the movements that are being put together, the intergenerational dialogues that is going on between the elderly women and the adolescent girls that are growing up to with some flames to end this abuse. So the vision of a gender-based violence-free community in 2063 is hopeful. We are hopeful, and we keep pushing.
Thank you. We have Cornelia who says if we all tackle this together, change can happen. And ladies and gentlemen, today our topic was an integrated continent free of all kinds of oppression, including gender-based violence. African leaders tackling this issue with the sensitivity it deserves. And I had here with me Petula Ezege Kecha, who is an activist, and she is also concerned with the girl's child, the promotion of girl education, as well as sexual reproductive health of the girl child. We had equally Antonia Dumba, who was with us, but she had some technical hitches. We want to thank all of you who have been watching us on Facebook, on YouTube. And today, Petula made us understand that the gender-based violence is a silent pandemic, as victims are hesitant to always reveal their experiences due to many barriers. And she talked of victim blame and equally victim shame. And equally, we are supposed to join, or the Justice of Africa is supposed to make good laws to be able to handle these issues of gender-based violence. And our traditional leaders should work hand in gloves with the government to handle gender-based violence. We equally, parents should teach our children sex education, create conducive and cordial relationship with our children so that they can be able to express themselves, tell us what is going wrong. And we are recommending equally that our parents should teach our children to use the right language, call things the way they are supposed to be called, so that if they are abused, they will come back and tell you that this is what happened, and you'll be able to handle an issue when it is still just about to begin. Ladies and gentlemen, this is how we had it today on the debate, and we are hoping that next week you're going to join us on Facebook as well as on YouTube, so that together we can continue to join our voices to all the other societies, all other groups that are talking about the Agenda 2063, and why not, how we can make Africa better. Thank you so much, Petula, for being there. You have been a resource person, and we are hoping to have you again on our program. Thank you so much, and have a nice
Thank you so much
evening.
for having me.
Thank you so much. Bye-bye for now.
Thank you. Have a great evening.
Thank you.
Thank you. Bye.
Bye-bye.